And just like that, we're back at Camp David.
American muscle, man. There ain't no room in here for metric shit.
Today's task is front brakes on my 78 Ford F-250. They got the dual piston. Sorry I didn't start recording earlier. I would have showed you taking off the wheels, but they had been off prior when I did my long tube headers. So far, all I've done was put the bumper jack under, jack it up. I put a block in the back there so it doesn't roll. Took all the lug nuts off, removed the wheels, put them aside. I'm going to be doing the brakes and the shocks. So what I'm going to do first is take some penetrating oil, some PB Blaster, and hit the bolts for the shocks. In the meantime, I'll start disassembling these brakes. We got a dual piston caliper. What we need to do first is undo this 9/16 bolt. Now just grab yourself a hammer after that bolt's out, and this is a slider. You want to bang it out. You can go either way. I found it easier to go this way. There's a little spring in there, so it's a little tough to do this while I'm recording, but you get the point. I'm gonna hit this until it slides all the way out. Okay, what slid out of there was this. This is the slider piece, and here's the spring. It keeps tension on the caliper. Now you want to grab yourself a long screwdriver, preferably a bigger one, kind of like this, or a pry bar, and put it in between here and pry out. That moves the caliper away from the rotor. And this is only being held on by the bottom bracket here, so it will fall. So I'm going to put the phone down so it doesn't totally fall on the ground and rip this line apart. And there you see it. These are the old brake pads. The pitting alone, oh, she's ugly. So good thing I'm replacing this stuff. I'm going to take some baling wire, move the caliper off to the side over here, and string it up. That way it's hanging and it's not putting any pressure on that line. I moved it far enough out of the way so I can get at this shock still, get a wrench in there. The shock bolt on the top is a 9/16, but first I'm going to grab a floor jack here and put a little pressure right underneath the spring, because the more you unscrew it, the tougher it is for that bolt to come out. And now it's probably sat long enough where we can, with the penetrating oil, that we can go ahead and take that bolt out. Okay, she wants to do the old spinneroo. So since this shock is bad, I'm going to take a pair of vice grips, put it right here, and when it starts turning, it'll hit here, and it'll prevent that from spinning, so I can get that bolt the rest of the way off. That's it. The bolt actually fell back there, but the new hardware comes with a new top bolt, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, let's take these off. Under pressure. And let's tackle that bottom bolt for the shock. 2 3/4-inch wrenches. So you'll want to take one of these wrenches and just stick them in here on this bolt. And this is what we're looking at under the truck. So you'll want to get your 3/4 on that side and this side and start spinning it off. And see how that wrench moved, and it's being held by the spring. And that was it. That was kind of scary how loose that was. Save that nut and the bolt. You want to push this bolt through and just grab that wrench. Save these because they do not come in your hardware when you buy the new shocks. And this should pull right out. And that's it. I want to give you guys an example of why I'm changing my shocks. So when I compress this, it just stays. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't come back up. So that one's bad. And I knew it to begin with because when I would press down or lean up against my truck here and I'd let off, it would just sit there and bounce. So it's all spring at that point. In your box, you'll have hardware. Just dump that out. And you'll have bushings and some backing plates and a nut for the top. So let's open that up and I'll show you how to assemble it before you throw it in there. Okay, I had enough room on the bottom to take my shock and just run it straight up through into its hole up there. And then go ahead and take your bolt that you saved and you put aside. Go ahead and put it right through here. Alright, I got her tight. You see I got that wrench sitting there. And it's going to eventually hit that bar there. And then whoa, I'm a liar. I went a little too fast. There you go. Yeah. Now onto the top bolt. Your bushing now goes first. And then grab your plate here, and you're going to want to go this way now, not upside down. You want to go that way. That, and then grab your new nut. Put that on there. Grab your 9/16 wrench and tighten her all the way down. Okay, so I'm starting to spin there. I gotta grab a wrench. I believe it's a 5/8. So in our case, right there to the left. Well, that's all the torque my gun had. So, and that is a shock installed. Now let's start taking this rotor off. You're gonna want to grab yourself a hammer. In some cases, some grease caps are different. You can use a little screwdriver to get in there, but I've done trucks like these before, and these are pretty solid here. So what you want to do is just kind of lightly tap it back and forth, and that grease cap should come popping off. There it is. We'll start taking this apart. So this is a cotter pin that we need to take out, and then this is like a holding nut, and then behind there's the actual nut, and then the bearing will pop out with the whole rotor and the bearing in the back. Pair of needle nose pliers, and the part they bent over for the cotter pin, bend them back straight. You'll need something a little tougher than needle nose to actually pull it through. So grab onto it good and pull it right out of there. Next thing is grab a screwdriver, flathead, and pull this locking nut thing out of there. There it is. And then I believe this is an inch and 1/16. I'll have to look. Oh, you know what? I just went with metric because I probably didn't have an inch and a 1/16. So they're not on there extremely tight anyways. They're supposed to be loose. I'm not sure if it's just going to slide off or not. Oh yeah, I gotta put this phone down. Alright, off came the nut. You're gonna have a washer and a bearing. So if you're careful, you can get it out of there without it hitting the floor and dirtying it up even more. We're gonna end up cleaning this and repacking it anyways. I'm trying to think of a trick that somebody told me before. You can keep the nut on there, and then as you're pulling this off, it'll actually pop that back bearing out, because there's a bearing and a seal. But in this case, we'll just take it off because I already got the nut over there and I'm too lazy. She's a heavy one. Okay. So yeah, you're gonna have a grease seal and then the bearing that's behind it. So I'm gonna flip it the other way and I'm just gonna lightly tap it out. And she popped right out. Grab yourself a little crap jug like I got here. Just a milk jug that I cut in half. I already had some brake cleaner in there. Place your bearing right up in there. Grab yourself some parts cleaner, brake cleaner. You can use I don't know, diesel, kerosene, anything that breaks down the grease. And start spraying that sucker. Do a favor and grab some gloves. So now that the brake cleaner is in there, it will break down the grease, so you need to blow it out to get the rest of the contaminants out of there. Oh, hole in my finger. Here we go. We got all the old grease out of there. They're nice and clean. So now we are going to have to repack them. This is Ford Lincoln Mercury. Obviously we got the Ford. Multi-purpose grease, disc brake wheel bearings, steering linkage, chassis, suspension, universal joint. So to repack, all you want to do is open this can here, grab a nice glob of grease with your fingers, put it in the palm of this hand, and then you'll want to hold the bearing where the opening here, where you can get the most grease, you'll want that facing down. So that way when you're packing the grease, all you're doing is kind of pushing it in there, you know, and you're just trying to get it to pop out the top here. And trust me, you're gonna want gloves for this. This stuff gets really nasty. Alright, so you can see it's oozing out the top there. Then you just turn it a little bit and keep going all the way around in a circle. I'll speed this up so you don't have to watch this nonsense. Alright, so that one has been packed. We're going to put it aside and we've got to do the other one. Here we've got the rotor. Cut that box open like it was Christmas. Alright, let's take the bearing here. And you want to face it the cone side down. So you see how it's tapered there? You want it facing down. Just make sure it seats down in there. The race is already in there. It came with the new hub. And then you could take a finger full of grease and go around the top of it. Really pack it down in there. And then you take your seal, wherever the hell I put it. Oh crap, where did I put it? Oh, right there. Take your seal, and then you want to put it on. Alright, this is, you got to put it on this way. So, where the metal is showing, it needs to be on this side. So place it on there. Yep, gotta get creative. Grab yourself a hammer, hold it in place, and just start tapping it down. Alright, so now that that's seated, I'm gonna grab some parts cleaner or brake cleaner and spray off these surfaces, this back and the front. Whatever the brake pad comes in contact with, you want to make sure it's oil free. While your rotor is still off, it wouldn't be a bad idea to get around here with a bristle brush and just clean up all that surface rust or anything that's loose, and you know, you can knock apart with this. That bearing out or the seal. Once she's back there, apply some pressure, hold her there, take your front bearing, oops, stuck, take your front bearing, cone facing in, oh, come on baby, there we go. Now take your washer, it only goes on one way, there's like a keyway. Keep holding pressure on it. Oh, isn't that like me? I said be prepared and I got the bolt on my left side. Put your nut on. Keep applying pressure and get that snug by hand. Okay, and that should hold itself. And by hand, just start tightening. And make sure this spins freely. You want it tight enough to where this rotor's not going to move around, but you also don't want it too tight as to where it binds it. Next is that locking cap. You're going to want to put that over it. This keeps the nut from backing off. And you're going to line it up with that cotter pin hole. And I went and got a new cotter pin. You're going to slide it down in there. And then take your needle nose and bend those bars over. So there it is. You've got the bearing first. Well, let's start all over. You put the rotor on with the bearing and the seal in the back. You slide that on. Then you install this bearing, the front one. The nut or the washer, and it only goes through that keyway. It only goes on one way. And then this the nut and the locking cap, and then the cotter pin, and then bend these tabs over. Just like that. Now we're ready to install the cap. Alright, let's get to those brake pads. We got to take those old ones out, compress the pistons, push them all the way in, clean up the caliper, put the new shoes on, or shoes, I'm calling shoes, the brake pads, new brake pads on, and then reinstall. So what you have to do is put one brake pad in here, leave that, grab a big C-clamp, or if you have a tool for pushing in the calipers, that's even better. Start tightening the C-clamp. I already put a little tension on it and I already heard the fluid starting to come out of the master cylinder. Here are our new brake pads. Let's go ahead and put those in. They only go in one at a time because there's a little slot. There you go. So like I said, you can only put one on at a time and it slides through those slots right there. You slide the one over to the left first and then you put the one on the right. Slide the bottom first like that and then push it on. There's a spring right here and it helps keep these brake pads from, I don't know, jarring around. Now you want to grab that slider piece. So on the bolted side, you want to put the spring on the opposite flat side. Grab your hammer. And you want to line it up with that hole. So I went a little too far, so I got to bang it back. That looks good right there. And grab your bolt here. Remember, it was a 9/16 socket. And by golly, that's it. So, yep, we got the shock in place. We've got the new rotor, repacked bearings, new brake pads. We cleaned up. Now all that's left to do is put the wheels back on and add some brake fluid, pump the brakes, make sure we're getting a good pedal, and that should be it. Same process for the other side, which I've already done. So new shock over here, same thing, same process. Fluid looks good. Put the cap back on. We'll pump the brakes and see what we got. Yeah, they feel good. Well, anyways, that's a wrap. I'm gonna take it down the road, see how the brakes work with the new shocks. Oh man, it's gonna be like night and day. I do have to do the rear shocks. I'm just running out of time today. It was a long one. I will do that in another video and keep you guys updated. Well, thank you for stopping by to watch another episode of Camp David. Please like, share, subscribe if you feel like you like the videos and you want to see more content. Hit that notification bell to stay updated. All right, take care. Till the next one. This is Camp David. Bye.